Busy guy this week. United States Senator James Lankford, Republican of the Oklahoma City area, joins us to talk to us about what's happening in Washington. Good morning, Senator Lankford.
Hey, good morning.
Congratulations on your new term and your swearing in. There's a beautiful picture of your wife holding the Bible that you were placing your hand over. It must have been a surreal experience for you.
It is a surreal experience. You realize there's only been 18 senators in all of Oklahoma history, and to be one of those and to be sworn in is always an honor. I do have to tell you a funny story. My pastor sent me a text message about an hour before that and said, hey, I understand they want you to swear publicly today, and I'm giving you permission as a pastor to swear publicly today.
Well done, sir. That's good stuff. So many things going on in Washington. Where do you want to start?
Oh, let me just tell you, we've got a million things going on right now. The Senate is not only in the legislative business, but it's also in the personnel business. So there's 1,200 different cabinet appointees or in different Senate-approved appointees that the new Trump White House will have to take through the Senate, 1,200 of those. So you can imagine a lot of time that will be spent on that debate. We've got all the regulations that the administration's tried to cram in the last 3 months as they're on their way out the door that are called midnight regulations. We've got a lot of those repeals, and then plus we've got Obamacare, we've got all the budget issues, we've got immigration issues. There's a lot happening right now, to say the least.
Well, has the leadership, on the Senate side at least, has the leadership given you an indication of what their priorities are going to be this term?
Well, it's all of the above. As crazy as it sounds, we have to just take it all on. We will be here a lot in the Senate. We will work a lot of late nights. We'll work a lot of weekends because we've got to get it all done. That's just the nature of it. There's a lot that this administration did not do for 8 years. As you know well, this administration, their focus was on regulations and not doing things through legislation. So that means there are a lot of things undone. And you've got a new administration with all the new people that have to be approved so they can actually get some of those tasks done in a new administration. So for us, it's just going to be a lot of weekends, a lot of late nights, and a lot of work that's got to be done. Let's get after it.
Has President-elect Donald Trump had any meetings or many meetings with Senate leadership?
You know, it's been more meetings with Mike Pence at this point. The president-elect obviously has spent a lot of his time trying to finalize his different cabinet officials and all the different leadership they're trying to work through it. The legislative piece of it traditionally falls to the vice president because the vice president in our constitutional system is also the president of the Senate. And so there's a lot of interaction between the vice president and the Senate leadership. And Biden has been around quite a bit. But not near the level that I think Mike Pence is going to be. I mean, Mike Pence has already been on the Hill a couple of times. We spent a big chunk of the day with him yesterday trying to work on strategy on Obamacare. As we laid some of that out yesterday, I think a lot of the picks and the way things are going to go are going to work a lot more with Mike Pence.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to ask, do members of leadership in the Senate spend much time talking to leaders in the House? Do you guys have to coordinate things?
Yeah, we do have to coordinate things. Sometimes that coordination goes well, and sometimes it doesn't. It's two different bodies, two different attitudes. So it's not just one's on the south side of the building and one's on the north side of the building. They all think alike. It's a very, very different body between the House and the Senate. But if you're going to actually move things into law, there's got to be some coordination between the two, at least some planning about what's the structure and what's the schedule, what will work in the Senate and what won't work, and the same thing for the House.
I know there's, you were talking about the confirmations and those kind of things that are going to be forthcoming. I noticed in your tweet that you ran into A.G. Pruitt, and that seems to be one of the most hotly contested appointments so far. How do you see that playing out, and is there going to be an opportunity for someone to be able to block that?
No. I think he will be there. He will be the Secretary of EPA, and I think he'll do a great job with that. He's walking around, meeting with people here in the Senate. He has scheduled appointments with all the people that will be involved in the first batch of votes and the first confirmation hearings and the committee assignments with him. And when I ran into him in the hallway, he was literally walking to another meeting, and so we stood and talked for a while, be able to catch up and see how all of his meetings are going. The meetings are going fine and somewhat predictable. There are a lot of Democrats that oppose him, not based on who he is or not based on his stand on the law. They like an EPA administrator that doesn't follow the law. They're not able to pass a lot of things, and so they want to create regulations on the edges. That's not what Pruitt's going to do. Scott's going to actually follow the law, and if the law says this, that's what the EPA is going to do. And if the law doesn't call for it, then the EPA is not going to do it. So their frustration is not what Scott will do, it's that what he won't do, and that's he won't ignore the law.
Okay, we're talking United States Senator James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma City, here on the Big Chief Plant Services Exploring Energy Show. Speaking of Scott Pruitt, Oklahoma Attorney General, being nominated for EPA Administrator and having to go through this confirmation process, Senator, help us understand a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of the confirmation process. When there'll be hearings and testimony and this and that, but when it finally comes up for a vote on Scott Pruitt as EPA Administrator, what body, who will do the voting? And how large of a majority is needed? Is it a simple majority or a supermajority for him to be confirmed?
Nope, it is a simple majority, actually. That is different than what it was a few years ago. But a guy named Harry Reid, you might have heard of, was mad, and he wanted to load up the D.C. Circuit Court with a bunch of judges that would approve all of Obama's regulations as they came through the D.C. Circuit. All of his regs were going to the D.C. Circuit. They were losing in that court. And so President Obama and Harry Reid wanted to load up the court. Republicans didn't want to do that. And so Harry Reid changed the rules of the Senate unilaterally, which was a permanent change, and changed for all positions, all cabinet officials, all Senate appointees, all judges, except the Supreme Court, would just be a simple majority, just 51. Now, Chuck Schumer made a statement just yesterday that they now regret that because they're not able to block things that they used to be able to block, and we're going to be able to put people in. We have 52 Republicans. I can't imagine that we would be short. People like Scott Pruitt, he'll be well affirmed by all 52, and there'll be a bunch of Democrats that oppose him, but they can't block him anymore.
So it'll be a vote of the full Senate.
There will be a vote of the full Senate. Well, there's two votes. There's a vote in committee to be able to move him out of the committee of jurisdiction, and then there'll be a vote of the full Senate as well. And when that vote happens, then it'll be sent on to the president, and the president will then have a new administrator.
What committee will that be?
That'll be Environment and Public Works.
Yeah.
So there are multiple committees that are out there, and each one does a little bit different. For instance, I'll meet with General Kelly here in just about 45 minutes. General Kelly would be the one who was the general that oversaw all of Southcom, but he would be the one that will be tapped for Department of Homeland Security. The committee that I'm on, Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, he will meet with all of those members. We'll actually do the first vote for them. We'll move General Kelly out to the full committee and then try to move it from there. CIA, same way I serve on the Intelligence Committee. So Mike Pompeo will come through our committee for initial approval. We'll work through that process and then be able to send him on.
Out of all the names being floated, is there any of them that surprises you?
Oh, there's some that surprise me. I just don't know. Rex Tillerson for Secretary of State. I've met him. He is still the leader of Exxon. He's a very interesting pick to be a Secretary of State, somebody from a solid business background. He knows everybody all over the world because Exxon does business all over the world. If they're going to transition the State Department and really being an economic arm more than a diplomatic arm, he's a fantastic choice. But it's a very different direction. So I'm going to get a chance to be able to visit with him soon, be able to talk about the direction that he wants to take the State Department. There are a couple other folks that I was a little surprised I just don't know, but we'll get a chance to visit with them and get to know them, and we'll see where things go from there.
Do you know anything about the one that just intrigues me is Mad Dog Mattis for Secretary of Defense? Do you know anything about him?
You know, just have met, but that's about it. So he is somebody that you can't find a Marine in the United States that does not respect General Mattis, because he is a Marine's Marine, came up through the ranks, is exceptionally well respected in the Pentagon, exceptionally well respected among the ranks, and from everything that I can tell, I can't find anyone who opposes him, but is someone that I think would bring a very different look from where we have been with the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense in the last couple of years has really been a social engineering entity to try to figure out how we're going to actually try to engineer social policy worldwide more than a Defense Department. The Defense Department is the ultimate diplomatic arm of the United States, and they bring credibility to what we do in diplomacy. But they also are there to be able to break things and kill people at the end of the day. And so they have to be well-trained and well-equipped and prepared for that.
Are you expecting anything different or unusual for the inauguration?
Well, you know what? I would tell you, Trump as a producer of television shows and of Broadway shows and of everything else, I would expect it would be quite a performance, actually. And the same thing with the inaugural balls and everything. I doubt that he does a humble, simple ceremony.
You don't think it's going to be you don't think it's going to be a Jimmy Carter walk down the road?
I don't think so.
I have no idea what he has. They have not announced the full schedule and the full breakdown of it. They've announced some of the ministers that are going to do prayers and some of the things in it, but they have a lot of things that they have not announced on it. But I don't have any doubt it'll be a good show.
I know we're running out of time, but I had one final question for you, Senator. With all this situation and change in the government, how long do you think it will take for Trump to be able to make a difference, like in Obamacare and some of those things like that he's vowed to repeal?
So Obamacare is a great question. We started the legislative process on Obamacare repeal yesterday.
Wow.
That will take multiple months to be able to work through the fastest possible track to be able to do a repeal. And even with that repeal, it'll take several years to actually unwind it. This is something that's been in our healthcare system for 6 years now. It's very well embedded. You do not turn that around in a weekend.
Right.
It will take a while to be able to do the turnaround on that. So I would not be surprised if it took a full 3 years to do the full turnaround for Obamacare. It was 3 years in implementation. It would not surprise me if it's not 3 years in repeal from multiple stages. One of the key things we've got to work on and watch for is there are many individuals that are in it that have been most definitely hurt in the process by the overspending and everything else that's in it. But you've also got individuals that have coverage that are diabetics, that are MS patients, that are in cancer treatments right now. You absolutely cannot leave them out in the cold. That is something we are not going to do. So you've got to be able to make sure that transition happens the right way, but it most certainly needs a transition.
United States Senator James Lankford, Republican of the Oklahoma City area, just sworn into the 115th Congress. He's got a lot of stuff on his plate. The inauguration is coming up. It's a fun time in Washington, D.C., and a fun time in America. Senator Lankford, thanks for taking time out of a busy schedule. Good luck this week and through the rest of the session, and we look forward to talking to you on this show next month, okay?
Sounds great.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
17 away.